I want to thank everyone for joining us today. I'm Jody Grenier, the CEO, Foundation for Women Warriors. We're a nonprofit organization that serves women veterans and their children all throughout Southern California. Kim Davis is our special guest and host today. She will lead us through personal finance management. Her mission is to empower women through both calm and turbulent times in financial management. So without further ado, I'm going to let Kim Davis take over.
Thanks, Jody. Thank you for inviting me to do this today. I appreciate it. Clearly, this is a turbulent time, I would say, for many people. And so the title of the webinar is Personal Finance Crisis Management. There's a lot of information to go through because, there's a lot of information out there floating around right now. So what I've done is I've tried to break it up into what the policies are that are there and the benefits that everyone can get, and then talk a little bit about our own personal finance management and where we all are and what we can do to kind of evaluate where we're at and how we might want to move forward or be able to kind of strategize better in our situation at the moment. So as Jody might have mentioned, if you have questions, I believe you have a chat window and you can write them and she'll relay the questions to me. So I'm going to the next slide. So basically, we have to be proactive about our situation. You really need to know the financial facts of your situation, gather relevant information, and implement a strategy and make the necessary adjustments. This is not the time to put your head in the sand and just hope that this is all going to go away. I think, it could drag on for obviously a bit longer. We're all going to be, we've been asked to shelter through the end of April and maybe beyond that. And we don't really know how things are what the new normal is going to look like. Is it going to be everybody all going out at one time? I don't think so. So it may be more of a sliding into things over time. So we need to be aware of where we're at, keep the longevity of our financial situation going, and make sure that we can evaluate and make adjustments as we go along. So the first thing I want to talk about that I think everyone needs to understand. Now, I'm not going to be able to get super granular because, we do have time constraints, but I will apply a broad brush so that everyone knows the highlights of what's out there. So I'm going to talk about the various stimulus bills that have been passed by the government. So essentially, 3 bills have been passed: the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, the Coronavirus Preparedness and Response Supplemental Appropriations Act, and the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Securities Act, which is being called the CARES Act. So with that said, there's a lot of information in all of these acts. So I'm just going to highlight certain things that I think are important to each person, every individual. And then, if we have to drill down a little bit more granular into these things, you can ask a question or I can direct you where to go to find out more information. So the first thing is that the deadlines have changed for income taxes. So everybody doesn't have to file their income taxes now on April 15th. They've got an extension to file them on July 15th without any recourse or any problem with the government. So we can all breathe a sigh of relief that we don't have to do that on April 15th, which would be coming up very soon. In addition to that, they've also extended the deadlines for making your contributions to your IRAs and your health savings accounts. Usually for 2019, you would have had to have done that by April 15th. Now you have until July 15th, just like you do with your tax filing deadline. So first thing, taxes, we've got some more time on that, so we don't have to worry about those right now, when a lot of people don't have money to worry about paying their taxes. So who will have to take action? If you didn't file a tax return in 2018 or 2019, the IRS is urging you to do so quickly because That's how they're going to have all your information on file about your direct deposit details and so on and so forth. If you made under $12,100 as a single person, or jointly as married people under $24,400, you would not have had to have filed a tax return. So now back to the other one. Back to the taxes.
Oh. Sorry about that.
All right. So if you didn't file a tax return because you didn't have to, go ahead and file one anyway so that they can get all your details on file. If the IRS doesn't have your direct deposit details, then they're going to send out paper checks to you, and that's probably going to take longer to receive. So they say they're going to send them out in early May. Hopefully they will. Maybe they won't, but we're hoping that they do. But obviously, if they can directly deposit things, that will be a little bit quicker in receiving the money. They're also expecting to create a portal in early May that is going to allow people to update their direct deposit information directly onto that portal. And you can also check the status of your individual payment. Okay, so now we're going to go to the next slide. If you happen to be receiving Social Security, you don't have to do that because they will pay you your stimulus payments immediately. And if they don't have direct deposit online, then they're just going to send you a check. So Social Security recipients don't have to file a tax return like the rest of us do. But, just in case there are some of you out there on Social Security, you don't have to worry about that. It will come to you. So the next thing that the bill, all of the bills kind of put forward is paid sick and family leave for businesses with 500 employees or less. Just a caveat, this may not apply to businesses with 50 employees or less, but it does expand who can get paid sick leave from before. So if you're an eligible employee, you have to get you can get up to 2 weeks or 80 hours of sick time. So what is an eligible employee? That would be an employee who is unable to work due to quarantine, or you're experiencing COVID-19 symptoms and you're seeking a medical diagnosis. If you are that person, you're going to get paid at your regular rate for up to 2 weeks and or 80 hours. You will get 2/3 of your regular pay if you have to care for someone who is ill or take care of a child whose school has been closed and you have to homeschool them and take care of them. So these are new and expanded paid leave benefits. If you want more information on that, go to dol.gov and they will specifically set forth a lot of this information. But, if you are at home and you have to take care of your child because they can't be at school and or you're not feeling well, you will be entitled to these expanded sick benefits. The next thing that has been expanded is unemployment insurance. The Families First Coronavirus Response Act, it added up to $1 billion to help this all out. And a lot of people that normally wouldn't be entitled to unemployment are now going to be entitled to unemployment. So that's a good thing. And before I get into maybe the specifics of this a little bit, I know that it is complicated for some people to access their unemployment insurance now because all the state systems are totally overwhelmed. And so some states are having people apply on a day based on the first letter of their last name, and so on and so forth, because they just don't have enough people to accommodate all the claims that are being put forward right now. So you will need to check into what your particular state is doing as far as making the application. But the key provision is it did put an extra $600 a week up to 4 months on top of what the state is already going to give you. So you're going to get an extra $600 per week. And so that's very good, because for some people, that will mean they're probably going to be making more on unemployment insurance with this extra $600 a week than they did when they were actually employed, at least for the time period that they get it. They extend eligibility up to 13 weeks. So you can get it for 13 weeks. How do you apply for this? You are going to apply for it, like I said, on the state's unemployment website. Be patient, but be persistent. Find out the facts of what days you can apply, you're eligible to apply on. If so some of the things that, groups that are now eligible for unemployment, people who are laid off or furloughed because of COVID-19, workers who quit due to COVID-19. Usually if you quit your job, you can't get unemployment insurance, but if you had to quit as a direct result of COVID-19, you are now eligible for unemployment insurance. Workers who are caring for their children or other dependents at home are also eligible. Self-employed workers unable to work due to COVID-19, usually these people are not entitled to unemployment, so they can explore that as well. Workers who were scheduled to begin their employment but can't due to COVID-19. Usually if you get unemployment insurance, you have to demonstrate that you've already had some earning in your job before you can receive it. So they've eliminated that. And individuals who are now who are now the primary breadwinners of their family due to the fact that the head of the household has died and can no longer be that person, they can apply for this as well. So that's kind of a quick synopsis of who can apply. And if you don't qualify for unemployment, you may qualify for the stimulus checks previously discussed. And I'm not even sure I touched upon that. I actually don't know if that was either in, for some reason, I don't see the slide for that. So there are apologies for that. I don't think that slide somehow made it into this, but, if you are single and I'm going to have to find those details. If you are single and you are making, you can get $1,200 if you're making up to $75,000 a year, I believe. You will get a check for $1,200 automatically deposited into your account. And if you are married fully, and that will go up to $99,000. It will have like a sliding scale of how much you get. And if you are married jointly with somebody and you're earning together, I believe it goes up to, I want to say $198,000. I'm going to have to check that real quick. But you will, yes, here it is. So if you'll get $1,200 to single individuals who make less than $75,000 and $2,400 checks to married couples who make less than $150,000. And you will also get $500 for each child under 17. So I'm not exactly sure where that slide went, but that was one of the first slides, and for some reason it didn't make it into that. So if you do not get unemployment insurance, you will also get the stimulus through those direct deposits into your bank account. And that's going to be, as we spoke before, you're going to get that if you file an income tax return. So, if you, the other thing is, if you are unable to get unemployment, there are people that are still hiring, grocery stores, some food delivery companies, cleaning services, online retailers. So, this is a time to kind of really be looking at all fronts to try to get some cash flow coming in. The next slide is talking about how federal student loan payments have been waived, as well as the interest. If you want to find out more about this, you can go to studentaid.gov. But the CARE Act suspends payments on federal student loans for 6 months. And it also waives any interest on those loans for 6 months. So that's obviously a very good thing for a lot of people that have to carry that burden every month. It will also make emergency financial aid available to some students up to the amount of their federal Pell Grant, the maximum federal Pell Grant that you can get. Federal work study payments can be made to qualifying students who have been unable to complete their work because of the fact that the school's been closed. And then students who are forced to withdraw from the school due to the outbreak may have a portion of their loan covered, covering the semester that was canceled. And then requirements to return portions of grants or loan assistance will be waived for students who had to withdraw from school as well. So there's a lot of information about the student loan payments, but they are being waived and you are not incurring interest on them right now. So that's good news for everybody who has to deal with that scenario. But if you want to find out more information, go to the studentaid.gov website and they'll give you more information on that. So the other thing that these policies have put into place is healthcare and expanded coverage of the healthcare. So all testing for COVID-19 must
Oh,
that's the same. That's the same thing. Am I losing you?
just for a second, but I think you're back with us.
Okay. So any COVID vaccines are also no co-payment. The CARE also helps with extra funding to community health centers and hospitals to include extra Medicare payments if you are on Medicare. So, make sure that you ask about that and, contact your provider and make sure that you are not overpaying or doing your copay. And then also you can use telehealth services under Medicare, and it expands coverage for that and will allow you to use it. It also allows high deductible people's insurance plans that are, with health savings accounts to also use the telehealth services, even if the patients have not met their annual deductible. So the co-payments and the deductible for things that are specifically related to this are being waived. So make sure that you're on that and you understand that, so that you're not overpaying. And that you can, give people the heads up if they don't know when they're billing you. The next thing that has been happened under these plans is that the retirement account rules have been relaxed. So for people who are receiving required minimum distributions, that has been suspended because of stock market losses in everybody's retirement accounts. So if you are over the age of 70 and a half, at least prior to 2020, now it's 72, but prior to 2020 it was 70 and a half, you had to start taking withdrawals from your IRA because the government wants you to eventually pay taxes on this pre-tax investment that you've had. But that has been now waived and suspended, so you do not have to take those required minimum distributions right now. Also, people who are eligible participants who have 401ks and IRAs are now able to take up to $100,000 from these retirement accounts without the usual 10% penalty. So if you're under 59 and a half and you usually want to take money out of your 401k or your IRA, you're going to get a 10.5% penalty on that withdrawal, in addition to having to pay ordinary income taxes on that. This is saying now you can borrow up to $100,000 against that retirement account, even if you're younger than 59 and a half, and you will not get a penalty on that. Now, you will have to pay taxes on that, but what they're saying is that you can spread that over a 3-year period, or you can pay it back into your IRA over the 3-year period, and that will be considered a rollover. So it sounds a little complicated, I'm sure, listening to me say this, but just know that you can, if you're under 59 and a half, you can borrow against your IRA, your 401k, without the penalty. But you have to be an affected eligible person, and that would mean someone who is that has either been diagnosed with COVID-19 or SARS-CoV-2, or experiencing adverse financial consequences as a result of a defined event relating to it. So you need to make sure that you qualify as an eligible participant. But if you're sick, or or your spouse has been sick, or you've been diagnosed with this, then you can think about taking a loan against your retirement account without penalty. Next, self-employed people who often don't get many benefits through unemployment and things like that, they are able to get some tax credits now that can help them through this time. And so if they are self-employed and they've been they have to take sick leave, they can get credits for up to $200 a day, or 67% of their average pay, whichever is more. It also allows up to $500 a day for emergency paid sick leave if it involves quarantine or testing. So that's 100%. So there are tax credits. It's not immediate money like for people who are going to be getting these stimulus payments directly to their bank account, but they are tax credits that can go against their tax liability in the future. And then for charitable giving, the other thing that they included, because they want people to be helping out charities right now. They want people to contribute to charities. And, there's that standard deduction that a lot of people take. It's a flat dollar amount, no questions asked. When that came into play, a lot of people stopped giving to charity because there wasn't an itemized deduction for charitable contributions. So they've changed that for the standard deduction. They're adding another $300 onto the normal standard deduction of $12,000, and that way, if you give to charity, you can take a $300 deduction for that. If you itemize your deductions, because you have a greater amount of deductions than the standard deduction, you can now increase the amount that you deduct from 60% to 100%. So they're trying to encourage people to actually give some money now and help a lot of the charities that need some help along the way. So that's another part of the program. Then the CARES Act also, came up with this Paycheck Protection Plan, and this is the big kahuna that they're hoping this is going to help a lot of people, because they're allocating $350 billion to help small businesses keep their workers employed, and during this pandemic. So instead of their employees being laid off or getting told they can't work anymore, they're going to keep them on the payroll and allow them to continue to get their health benefits, so that when this ends, there's a job, their job is still there, and they can just rejoin the workforce and go back to their job. This coronavirus emergency loans and small business checklist is a link that you can, if you request this, you can kind of follow the link. But it is put out by the Chamber of Commerce, and it's the Coronavirus Emergency Loans Small Business Guide and Checklist. It looks like this. And this will tell you pretty much everything you want to know about this program. But one thing it does say is that, all loan terms are the same for everybody. So doesn't matter who you are, you have the same loan terms. And the loan amounts will be forgiven, provided that the loan proceeds are used to cover payroll costs and most mortgage, interest, rent, and utility costs over the 8-week period after the loan is made, associated with running that business to keep the business afloat. And then you have to keep your employees' compensation levels maintained. So if you are an employee in a business that gets one of these loans, then this is going to hopefully keep you afloat during this period, because you're still going to be getting your paycheck. Payroll costs are capped. This is the next slide, Jody. Payroll costs are capped at $100,000 on an annualized basis for each employee, so up to $100,000 per person. And you have to, there's going to be a high subscription rate for all of this, so they want to make sure that not more than 25% of the forgiven amount is for non-payroll costs. So the whole point of this is to really keep payroll afloat. And then loan payments on these loans, and this is by the employer, who's going to borrow to make sure they can pay for the employees to get their pay, they get their loan payments deferred for 6 months. When can small business owners start applying? They can start applying April 3rd. That was a few days ago. And if they're small businesses and sole proprietorships. And then on April 10th, independent contractors and self-employed individuals can begin applying. So where can you apply? Well, you can apply through any existing small business association lender or through any federally insured institution or credit union or farm credit system institution that's participating. Now, some of the big banks are participating and some are not. And it just depends. You're going to have to check into that. And some of them are limiting the amount that they're going to be lending out because obviously there's going to be an overwhelming demand for this. But other regulated lenders are starting to get into this. And once they are approved to do so, they'll be in the program. I would start with your local lender and check out the situation with your local lender because they're going to be the most inclined to lend to you quicker and that you'll already be part of their system. But you can visit www.sba.gov, and that will give you a list of all the small business lenders that are going to participate in this program. So, I think it could be, it may be a little bit, you're going to have to circumnavigate a bit to get to the right lender, but they are there. And I would start with your current bank if you could possibly do that. And again, not all banks are participating, but many are. So who can apply for these loans? Well, all businesses can apply, including nonprofits, veterans organizations, tribal business concerns, sole proprietorships, self-employed individuals, and independent contractors, as long as they have 500 or fewer employees. Businesses in certain industries can have more than 500 employees if they meet certain standards that have been set forth. The SBA's affiliation standards are waived for small businesses in the hotel and food services industries, in franchises in the SBA's franchise directory system, or who receive financial assistance from small business investment companies licensed by the SBA. So that's kind of a recap of the various things that are on offer. So it's, you're going to get stimulus payments if you are making under a certain amount of money, depending on how much you make and whether you're married. You're going to have unemployment insurance that's been expanded, healthcare insurance that's been expanded, small business loans if you're a small business person, deferred tax filings, and suspended RMDs on your IRAs, and you can maybe borrow against your retirement account, which traditionally has come with a penalty if you're under 59 and a half. So those are the government subsidies and benefits that are available. So the next thing I'd like to go into is about your personal crisis budget review. I mean, this is a time for many of us to sit down and look at where we're at and try to figure out what we've done well and what we haven't done well, and are we able to sustain ourselves through this situation. So the first thing I would recommend is that you have an open and honest conversation with your family about finances in this crisis. Where are you at? And even if you're just living on your own, it's really important that you review all of your savings and your budget and try to find out what is necessary in your budget and what can be cut out. Because right now you need to take draconian measures to make sure that you can get through this time. So the first thing I would recommend that you do is that you create a spreadsheet to track your fixed costs. If you have Excel and you know how to use Excel, nothing better than an Excel spreadsheet. If you don't have Excel and you don't like to use computers, use a yellow pad, but start tracking your expenditures and make a line item of all of your fixed costs, your rent, your mortgage, your utilities, your cell phone bill, your food, and all the insurances that you have to pay, including health insurance. these are the things that you have to pay to get through your life, or they'll start turning things off and, things to that nature. So I would say make a list of your fixed costs. Then I'd list all your credit card payments. Who do you have to pay for maybe lingering credit card debt that's sitting there? And then I'd review all of your discretionary expenses. What are you spending on things that are non-essential? Eliminate or severely reduce online shopping costs, clothing, subscriptions for things that you may not need, whether it's cable TV, certain things on cable TV, or other subscriptions that we all seem to pay and they add up. And before you know it, we've got all these little costs that add up to a lot. Reevaluate your food purchases. I mean, this is a time to get very granular with how you're spending your money. Boring, maybe, but maybe a lifesaver if this thing lingers a little bit longer than we think it's going to linger. So it's time to get serious, to get in a military frame of mind about this and take charge. So there are a couple of things that you can do to try to stave off, problematic situations. So seek assistance in payment delay or forgiveness. Don't be afraid to ask for some assistance. If you don't ask, you don't get. So ask. Many utilities, telecommunications companies, and automakers are easing shutoffs and waiving late fees to consumers who are struggling during the pandemic. So if you don't reach out to these different companies and explain your situation, they won't know, and then they won't be able to afford you any kind of space to work this out over time. Reach out to your providers and inquire what their policies are and if you can get some relief. AT&T is suspending the termination of wireless home phone and broadband service when customers can't pay their bills because of coronavirus disruptions. Verizon is waiving late fees and suspending service termination for customers also negatively impacted by coronavirus. T-Mobile is providing unlimited data to customers with plans for the next 60 days. So if there's a problem, call them, reach out to them, try to negotiate this. Ford Motor is offering customers potential delay in payments to provide relief as well in their car payments. And many utility companies are suspending disconnections due to non-payment and waiving late fees. So again, go through your list, your utilities, your telecommunications company, your car payment, all those things that you're having to deal with every month. If you are sick or you've got a lot of problems because of this, you've been laid off, you haven't gotten your checks yet, you just can't make the payments, make a phone call. Don't let your pride get in the way. This is the time to seek assistance. Contact any essential provider that you have in your life and try to get some space and help from them. With respect to credit card payments, I've been reading a lot of different information about that, and a lot of these issuers are actually, providing a lot of assistance to the people who use their credit cards. Many of the companies have released statements, and you can see it on their websites. But if you're going to have a problem, you should contact your creditors as soon as possible. Reach out to them. Many of these companies will provide individually tailored solutions to your situation. So they'll have these off-menu solutions to help those who are struggling financially. So, ask direct questions about short-term hardship that has been caused by COVID-19 and by your situation. I know that they are, various American Express is working with customers. Bank of America is working with customers. Barclays, Capital One, and a lot of them also have digital tools, so you can go online and try to work through the system online. I know sometimes that is frustrating, but certainly try there, and then if all else fails, get on the phone and call them. But don't be easily discouraged, because if you are able to work out arrangements with these various companies, it can really provide you with some peace, because you're not worried about these immediate burgeoning payments that are just hanging over your head, in addition to the fact that you may not be working or you may not be feeling well, or you've got your children at home who are you're going to having to homeschool because they can't go to school. So they will listen to you and call them and be strident about it. Don't take no for an answer. That's that's the way you've got to be in these times. If you have an emergency savings fund, something I have talked about ad nauseum, would be maybe the time to dip into that. Don't not use it. This is an emergency time if you need the money. Don't use it for frivolous items or for discretionary items like clothes and shoes and DoorDash and all that, but use it for things that are a necessity, keeping your shelter, making sure you have food, making sure the lights are on, so on and so forth. So if you do have an emergency savings account, this is the time to consider perhaps using, dipping your toe into that. You could explore balance transfers. If your credit is healthy enough, maybe you can qualify for a card with a 0% introductory rate that goes on for a few months, and you can balance transfer some of your debt on high interest cards onto the lower rated, the zero rate card. So you could explore that as an option. It's a little bit of shifting around, but it would definitely save you some money, and it will, take the interest burden off you for a few months. And then the other possibility is obviously to look for personal loans that have a lower rate than your credit cards and try to, pay your credit cards off with the lower rate personal loan, if you are able to do that given your credit score. And of course, you can always try to seek assistance in your community of friends, your family, and places of worship. Some churches can help. If you need to, ask your family. Desperate time, desperate measures. But, definitely cast the net wide and try to find assistance in as many different locations as you can. If your accounts are already very delinquent, then I would recommend reaching out to the nonprofit credit counseling agency called the National Foundation for Credit Counseling. And I'm going to refer to them a little bit later. But they do a lot in helping people with debt management, and they will be able to give you some pointers and help you through this time. Also, reach out to your mortgage provider or your landlord to see what they can do for you. They might be able to postpone payments or reduce payments. But again, if you do not ask for it, you will not get it. You cannot be shy about this. If you need relief because you need more cash flow, then get on the phone and ask. Also, contact your auto and homeowners insurance companies to discuss options such as skipping premium payments, forgiveness of their late fees, getting a payment extension, or adjusting your installment payments based on your personal situation. All these guys are willing to work with everybody on this right now. It's really up to us to take the bull by the horns and actually make it happen. So highly encourage you to do that and not to be reticent to make these phone calls or to look online and see what you can do through their portals. The other thing that you should be thinking about during this time is protecting your credit. Check your credit regularly, and you should be doing that anyway. But it's really important that your credit reports are correct and are reflecting your situation correctly, and that you identify any fraudulent activity or respond to any damages to your credit that occur. So, and make sure you check all 3 credit bureaus, Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. And if there's any inaccurate information, then be sure to dispute it. So if you can pay your bills on time, do so. Even if it's the minimum payment, just pay them on time so you can keep that track record going. But you can get help from lenders and service providers, because a lot of these people understand the situation and they will work with you and they will provide individually tailored solutions. So you, again, should reach out to them and explain your particular set of facts and circumstances. And then again, you can contact a credit counselor. There are these nonprofit counselors that can offer advice, and they create debt management plans. So Jody, if you want to go to the next slide. So like I said, the National Foundation for Credit Counseling is a very reputable group. They're certified credit counselors, and they can definitely point you in the right direction of how to get some help. You can also go to the U.S. Trustee Program. and that's offered through the Department of Justice, and it features a search tool to help you find a credit counselor. And then you can also check your state attorney general's office or your local consumer protection agency. But I would highly recommend that if you feel that you're up against it, definitely get some counseling on what to do about creating a debt management plan. There's no time like the present. Do it now, because this is, there's going to be a next phase to this. So that's the next part of this. What about investment strategy? All these things are going to go on after this. So try to work within this time now to clean up stuff and give yourself as much leeway to have cash flow by contacting these various providers and so on and so forth. The next thing I'm going to talk about is, what about investment strategy? If you have investments, and or whether you're in the stock market or the bond market, or you have mutual funds, whatever it is, the first thing you must do is don't let fear dictate your investment decisions. Do not do that, because it will be your undoing. It's human to fear the unknown, and God knows we've got a lot of unknown on offer right now. And this is an unprecedented situation. We have had, depressions before. We've had illnesses before with various flus, but we've never had a situation where the economy was shut down by people being told to stay home. So it's a fearful situation, but this too shall pass. Things will change. It may not happen in the second quarter, which we're in now. It may start to happen at the end of the third quarter, and it may happen in the fourth quarter, which would be somewhere between September and December. I think the base case scenario that a lot of economists are referring to would be that in Q3, which would be the third quarter, that's during the summer, things would start to improve slowly. And by the fourth quarter, by the end of that, that's the end of the year, things could be really starting to, get some steam back in the economy. Gross domestic product will go up because more people will start going back to work, and people will be manufacturing more. And then the stock market will get more steam, and so on and so forth. That's kind of the base case. Best case is more of a V-shaped recovery that all occurs in the third quarter. And then the worst case would be there would be a recessionary type period through the end of May of next year. But whatever that scenario is, do not let your investment decisions be motivated by fear, because it will actually be your undoing. And feeling fear and acting on fear are very different things. So the first thing I think everybody needs to determine is, what are your liquidity needs for the next 6 to 12 months? When I say liquidity, that's basically a word for cash. How much cash are you going to need for the next 6 to 12 months? Do you have enough money to pay your rent, pay for food, and so on and so forth, or the next 3 to 4 months, or the next 2 months? But how much cash do you have on hand? Are you still employed and receiving a paycheck, and do you feel confident that that will go on for a while? Because if so, then you're in very good shape compared to people who are not in that position. If you don't have an emergency fund and you have no incoming cash flow, then you need to determine what your cash flow needs are so that you can attend to them. So if you have an investment account and you have no liquidity, then you may have to liquidate some of your investments to come up with some cash to give you the ability to live for the next few months. But if you're not in that situation, then I would not recommend going to cash in your investments right now, because you will lose, your paper loss will become a permanent loss of capital, and you'll miss any run up that the market experiences when it goes back up again. And it will be hard for you to recover those losses from cashing out. So do keep in mind that there have been multiple unprecedented economic crises over time, and the crisis has ultimately gotten resolved, and economic activity grew, and often exponentially. A patient, disciplined, next slide, Jody. A patient, disciplined, long-term investor, is going to be rewarded for standing firm during this time. It's very hard to market time, which means, know the time to get out because it hit the bottom, and know the time to get back in because it's right before it goes up. Nobody nobody can really do that. And if they say they can, they're lying to you, and don't believe them. All it does is it's like going to Las Vegas. So if you have a good strategy in place, stick to it. You don't want to sell low and buy high. It's very hard to determine if you cash out when you're going to re-enter the market. We've seen over the past few weeks, we've had big dips, and we've had some very big highs. And today the market was up almost 8%. Will it be up 8% tomorrow? I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that over the next, 6 months to a year to 2 years to 3 years, it will come back, and you don't want to cash out at a low amount only to have to re-enter at a higher amount. And when Jody will show you the next slide, which, is this predictive? I can't say 100% that it is, but just some fun facts. If you look at various drawdowns or times when things were bad, you can see various times over the last many years where the market has been down, and then you see 1 year it's gone back up, 3 years it's gone back up even more, 5 years it continues to go up. So as harsh sometimes as the downturns are, is how exponential the rises can often be, and historically that has been the case. So that is just a chart that can maybe support the notion of staying the course with your investments. So the next question is, what should we do next? Okay, so here we are. We're trying to shore up our situation. We're trying to make sure that we have enough cash to get through this. We're accessing all the potential things on offer to us from the government, and that we're making sure that we, can use every avenue that we need to get through this crisis. But this is also a time for reflection, right? Many of us are home, working from home, or just at home because we have no job to go to. And this is a time to really reassess and reflect on where you're at, and ask yourself the hard questions. Did you have a budget before that? And if you did, how did it hold up to get, how did it hold up to give you some solace in this situation now? Did you have an emergency fund set up? And if you didn't, why didn't you? I speak a lot about automated savings and emergency funds and all the things that people should have in place for precisely these moments of emergency, things that you can't expect come up. And that's exactly what's happened here. And as a result, some people were very unprepared. Do you have burgeoning, lingering credit card debt? And is that causing you further stress right now? So, in the future, remember this moment. Let's not have that credit card debt hanging over our head to add to an already stressful situation. If you have an emergency fund in place right now, you would feel a lot better than if you don't, because at least you've got a cushion for a certain amount of months that will prevent you from feeling abject stress about, how you're going to pay for your next meal. Have you been living beyond your means? And do you have a savings plan in place? I am a big fan of people doing automated savings and paying themselves first. So when you go back to work, I would say when you get paid, take a certain amount of money, and every month have that go to a savings account before you even can look at it or touch it. Just have it directly transferred on automated transfer to a savings account. And at least you then have a regulated savings plan in place, and you're paying yourself first before you pay for anything, because your peace of mind is as important as, buying discretionary goods, right, to have fun with, because it's in moments like this where it really comes into play. So these are the things that I would, I think everybody needs to think about. And like now is the time to plan for the future post-crisis environment. Create a budget. Think about your budget, because now this will give you hindsight. Where are you when this all? Where were you when this all happened? What was your situation like? So this will give you hindsight to see whether you were prepared. Implement a plan to pay off your credit card debt. Start thinking about that when you start working again, or if you're working now. Start, keep chipping away at that. Make sure that you have an emergency fund. 4 to 6 months is great. If it's only 2 to 3 months, that's better than no months, but start somewhere. It is essential that you have an emergency fund, because for job loss, illness, unprecedented situations like this, it's going to be the thing that gives you peace of mind at night. Establish a doable automated savings plan that will pay you back like beyond belief in times like this, because then you will have saved up without having to stress out about it too much. And then, boring but true, live within your means. So I have a quote from Marcus Aurelius that says, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." It's up to you to handle yourself. It's up to you to handle your finances. If our finances are a mess, our peace of mind is a mess, our stress level is high. And so this is a very simple thing that we can have control over. We all know how to use a calculator. We all know math. It doesn't even have to be complicated math. It just means knowing what you've got and working within the parameters of that. So that's it for today. I don't know if there are any questions, but before we get to that, if you want to contact me and ask more granular questions, Jody, you can put up the next slide. You can email me at kim@thefiscalfeminist.com. You can also follow me on Instagram at The Fiscal Feminist and message me through there if you like, or Facebook. And I would also ask you to please, if you have a chance, listen to the podcast, because I go into a lot more detail about certain things in some of the previous blogs and podcasts.
Thank you so much, Kim. I do have a couple questions from some of our folks that joined us. The first one comes from Christina Watkins. She said, I'm helping my father make decisions right now. He was working, but he got sick in January. He recovered somewhat and returned to work, but then he went out while his employer was trying to decide if they could redesign his job or if he's out because of his long-term prognosis and decrease in physical ability. That's what was up when Corona shut everything down. He was still on his employer's books, but on unpaid leave. I'm trying to convince him to try for the CARES expanded unemployment, since he can't return to work or look for new work, as he is now extremely high risk. Best guess, knowing this is new and hasn't been legally challenged, do you think this is right advice to give him?
So if I understand her correctly, he was already not working before the whole coronavirus thing.
Correct. He was on an unpaid leave.
Yeah. So I don't think that unemployment insurance is going to cover that, because if you were already unable to work or there was a problem prior to this, unless you can show the connection somehow with coronavirus and being affected by it, I have a feeling that you will get pushed back for that, because I think they specifically said that if you were already on disability or you already were not working for some reason with your employer, this wasn't going to apply to that. Now, it doesn't hurt to ask or to try to explore that, but I believe that if they were already kind of not working for other reasons, it probably will not get caught up in this, unfortunately, unless there's a link somehow, between the virus and his current situation.
Okay. I would ask Christina if you have any other further questions to
reach out to me, and we can maybe try to explore this a little bit more granularly if she can talk to me a little bit more about the situation.
Okay, so the next question is from Tyler Parthamer. She asks, why is it necessary to check all 3 credit bureaus? Good question.
Just because they all have an effect on when you get credit extended to you. Some people who are going to extend you credit may only look at Experian, but that's really not the case. They check all 3, because all 3, your credit scores are often different by credit bureau, which I've never completely understood why that is, but I think it's because of the way information gets reported. So sometimes, like my TransUnion score is way higher than my Experian one, and vice versa. And it's often, look, it's a cabal, right? I mean, I'll be honest with you. I mean, these guys, it's all. I'm not saying it's just, but it's what is required, and all these credit agencies are, in cahoots together with the people that are providing the credit. Unfortunately, that is the situation. So you look, if you check Experian, and because I know it costs money to check these things, so you can check them maybe, once every 6 months or something like that. Or what I generally do is I check my Experian account once a month, and then like once every quarter, I'll do a check of all three, because they charge you to do this to see it. So I understand it sounds, ridiculous to have to check all three, but lenders will check all three. And that's what dictates this.
Okay, great. So the next question is from Amy. She says, I've been a student via VA, voc rehab, and not working. I'm not able to attend this semester. Is there any type of financial assistance I can apply for, similar to unemployment, et cetera? So that's more of a VA-related question, and I'll take that, Kim. So one, I would ask, is this due to coronavirus, or is it just a separate situation in which you were not able to attend? I do know that the GI Bill, if for whatever reason your status changed from in resident to online, that they weren't making any change to dispersing housing payments. I would say if this is not COVID related, to email us after we end this webinar, and we'll put you in contact with Myra Galeas, who is our program coordinator, and we can talk through the other types of financial assistance that may be available to you, either through some of our partner organizations or through our organization. Thank you for your question, Amy. The second question is from Lori. My former spouse said he may shut down his company and I will not be receiving alimony once that happens. My alimony exceeds the cap for single people. What does that mean in terms of the stimulus money?
So it sounds like she's saying that her cap, that her current alimony is more than the amount of money that they're going to give stimulus for.
Correct.
Is that correct? So on that note, I mean, if he stops paying her, then she might qualify. But the problem is that they're looking at your 2018 and 2019 tax returns. So that's what's going to dictate all of this, not where you're currently at the moment. They need to have some understanding of, they need to have some measurement of what people earned. And obviously the easiest way to look at that is to look at your tax returns from the previous year. So, obviously unemployment isn't going to work. I think, I'm happy to look into if you have a situation, because that's a very specific situation that, could change. Now, is he going to stop paying alimony within this window of time when the COVID-19 thing is going on? Or is he going to wait to do that after this event? I think that could be a very tricky situation because, a lot of people, the government, I'd have to look into that, because one could argue that people would start paying alimony to see if people could get COVID-19 subsidies when they're perfectly capable of paying alimony. So I think that would be an extenuating circumstance. So I don't know what happens if you haven't filed an income tax return and they have no way of tracking it. So that's why they're saying, even if you made less than $12,000 last year, go ahead and file it so that they have your direct deposit details. But presumably she's already filed her income tax for last year and it's above the stimulus. So now perhaps there could be an argument if the children are home and she's homeschooling them, maybe there could be an in that way somehow. But I could look into that for her if she'd like to reach out to me to see if there's something for situations that change quickly because of that. And I think it'd also be interesting. People might want to understand is if the alimony is stopped being paid because the person who's paying it is sick from the virus.
Right. No, it looks like she's saying no, he's not sick.
Yeah.
Another consideration might be that if he doesn't shut down his company because he applies for one of these payment protection.
Yeah, he can get a small business loan if he's
Right.
if the qualifications of doing so, and hopefully could get some subsidies for himself that would enable him to pay for but it depends on his his situation as well. Like if he's just decided he just doesn't want to pay his alimony anymore, well, that's kind of a different story.
You said she'll reach out to you via email.
Yeah.
One other consideration that I wanted to add is that we mentioned this during the Social Security portion, that those that are on Social Security, in terms of the stimulus check, if you receive it direct deposit, that's how you'll receive your stimulus check. For those of you that might be collecting disability through the VA, if you do not file taxes, you will have to file taxes in order to get a stimulus check if you've been on VA disability. So I just wanted to add that, and we can send out additional information on that. So I know that we have quite a few women veterans that might be receiving disability through the VA and not working and haven't filed their taxes in the past because of that. In order to receive that stimulus check, you will need to file.
Which is different from if you're a regular Social Security recipient.
Exactly. Does anyone have any other questions? I've got the chat open. I hope this was helpful to each of you. We will send out a PDF. I want to thank you all for joining us because, it's a very overwhelming and uncertain time, but the most important thing we can do is take control of what we actually have control of, right? And so understanding where you're at financially will reduce a lot of undue stress and hopefully help you make better decisions from here on out. Additionally, our organization is here for resources and referrals. If you are living in Southern California, you can inquire about our financial assistance program. We have a ton of information for you, both on local resources and on partner organizations. And we want nothing more than to enhance your economic stability during this time, because we know we're so grateful for your service to our country, and we know that you will continue to lead us, and we want to take care of you. So thank you all for coming. Thank you so much, Kim, for being with us today and offering your expertise. Kim is absolutely amazing, and we are so grateful to have your partnership and your leadership at such a weird time. But I want to thank you all for being here. We're going to get through this, and much love to you all. Feel free to reach out should you need anything else.
Thank you, Jody. And yes, everybody, please reach out to me. I'd be happy to help in any way I can.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.